you consider yourself a financial advisor, or how do you help others? What is the model you use and the process that you leverage to help others on their journey?
A lot of this stuff is sort of centered around what I want to do for my family is take that holistic approach to wealth building, right? Everyone gets enamored with, which is often that question I get asked, like, where do I invest? I said, well, that's good and it's important for us to do. But what I do know is foundationally, there's way more important things to understand and get settled first.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to have you back and listening to the show. We got a great guest today, Tom Suvansri. Tom, did I get that correct? The last
You
name
got it.
pronunciation?
You got it.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have you on board, guys. We got a great guest today, an excellent subject, very much related to what we're all doing here, particularly if you're investing, if you're a business that you have a business you built, you're an entrepreneur. There's more to it than that. So we're going to get into it with Tom. So Tom, thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate this opportunity to have you on the show.
No, thank you so much, Gary. I really admire all the great work you're already doing. So hopefully you can add some value to your listeners.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to do it. Obviously we've met before, and I've been on yours, and I've looked at everything. You're just an amazing person and a good human being. So if you wouldn't mind, since most people listening, some might know you, some not, fill us in a little bit, about a little bit about who you are and where you are, and give us some context, and then we can get into the what I call the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of what I've joked to a lot of folks about this, I'm almost like a refugee from the corporate America world. It served me well for quite some time, helped me sort of build some wealth. And as I matured, I started recognizing that wasn't the best place for me long term. And so finding ways to explore how to maybe get out of that, right? And you start learning things. Took me a little while, right? Some of it starts and stops, but eventually I was able to build enough wealth and cash flow, which is why I love the name of your show, uh, to build that cash flow to allow me some flexibility and choice in life and allow me to leave corporate America and through real estate and learning different ways to protect and grow my wealth. And so now I feel so privileged to be able to share that with people, right? Because there's so many ways to control our wealth, and a lot of people are trying to do that without us sometimes even recognizing it. And I kind of learned it from the inside and just sort of kept my eyes open to different types of ways to manage my wealth and think more expansively about things. And so now I'm just privileged to be able to help folks, control more of their wealth, build the life they really want, and do things for the family that they just always thought they couldn't. And so that's where I am today, a practitioner in a whole bunch of different things. We'll go through them today a little bit. But it's just it's a freeing sort of world for me these days to kind of make an
Yeah.
impact where I can in this world.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I think you're in good company because, including me, a lot of us here are definitely refugees from the corporate world. And it's our upbringing. It's what we were taught in school. Go to, get a good grades, go to college, get a degree, get a corporate job. And remember, the generation prior to us, for the most part, that's exactly what happened. And they worked 40 years and retired, and that was pretty much it. But the world has changed dramatically. I mean, even in practical terms, like I guess it was the 80s and 90s when corporations started, doing away with shedding the pension plans. And then, of course, we all had to have our 401ks if we're going to have any type of financial future at all. But even that's, so I don't know what the right word is, stodgy. It's not, it's very limited. I don't want to scare people, but guys, if you're still in the employee world, the corporate world, have faith. You can do like what Tom and I did, and I did it while I was still working. But the reality is when you only have one stream of income, you're at great risk. And when that one stream of income is dependent upon some other entity, like you're an employee for a corporation, you're even at greater risk. Now, I'm not saying being an entrepreneur is a walk in the garden every day. There's peaks and valleys, there's challenges every step of the way. But the point is you're in control. So Tom, with your approach to wealth building, what is it about your approach that would you say makes it somewhat unique? What were some of the things you learned over the years for building wealth?
Yeah, and a lot of we get so trapped into what the conventional wisdom tells us. So, I watched,
Mhm.
unfortunately, my parents, my father was a physician and came here first generation, and just like a lot of families, weren't taught anything about finance. And so
Mhm.
he was a great doctor, but just awful at managing his money. And,
Mhm.
unfortunately, it sort of trickled down to, sports with my mom and just really bad stuff. And, we understand how impactful that could be. So getting the ground level sort of financial education was so key for me once I saw this happening, as I can't let that happen to me. And so as I
Yeah.
started learning things, I learned a lot of the basics, right? What everyone's taught, like the millionaire next door, and you kind of take these sort of things for granted. But like maybe some of you on this who are listening to this, when 2008 hit and 2001 hit, and all these sorts of things, it made you start thinking about how can this be like this, right? This doesn't feel stable. It doesn't feel like I know what's happening. I just take the brunt of it. And so I just started learning more. How are for lack of a better, wealthy doing it? How are they managing their money? Right.
Mhm.
And I started learning obviously things around real estate and what that could do for folks. But I also came across a unique approach around managing our financial needs in our lives, which is the biggest need we all face. We have to finance our lives, whether we spend money or invest. Well, who controls that today? Well, it's the banking industry, and we just
Mhm.
assume that they're all working on our behalf. But I was able to uncover a different way to control more of that, and then put it into investments like real estate, things that I can control, and sort of
Mhm.
basically see control back. And so those are the types of things that I just uncovered over time. And my advisors weren't telling me these things, right? They were
All
just
right.
doing exactly it. Pump money into your deferred account for someday, right? And just grind it out. And it's just, it's not it's not timing the market, it's timing all the phrases that people tell you become almost, you feel like truths until you actually look at them and rethink your thinking right around them. And so that's the type of stuff that I'm just so blessed to be able to have learned and share with folks to who are open to it.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And I know your background, you've got, obviously an advanced degree from Penn State. Yay, great school, excellent football team, and then you founded Perennial Pride. So, at this point in life, so you've evolved and grown yourself, and now you're helping others. So, is this, uh, uh, would you consider yourself a financial advisor, or how do you help others? What is the model you use and the process that you leverage to help others on their journey?
Yeah, and that's why a lot of this stuff is sort of centered around what I want to do for my family is take that holistic approach to wealth building, right? Everyone gets enamored with, which is often that question I get asked, like, where do I invest? I said, well, that's good and it's important for us to do, but what I do know is foundationally, there's way more important things to understand and get settled first. Just like building a house, you wouldn't just start building a house without a strong foundation, right? And the
Yeah.
bigger your foundation, because that's what we need to withstand things, to solidify our wealth building. And so I learned that the importance of playing offense and defense and how they actually can actually accentuate each other, right? And work together. And so those are the types of things I learned because, and I think we were talking a little bit before we started recording, life is going to change regardless of what we do, right? And I say this to myself in the morning, embrace impermanence, because whether it's good or bad, it can easily flip. And so
Oh
for
yeah.
folks who are, thinking financially, building the foundation that you can withstand stuff all along the way, whatever it is, disabled, die, divorce, get sued, whatever the situation, but be positioned to be able to win regardless. And that's the type of stuff I help people teach to understand how the offense and defense plays together. And then how do we figure out to cede more control back to our favor in our families, in our businesses. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm like excited to share with folks.
Awesome. Well, when you meet people, I'm always curious about this because you know, we 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 both have unique backgrounds. All of it, everybody here, everybody listening. And mine's, kind of unique because I have my father's side of the family. It was, fairly well to do and great custodians with their money. They were business owners. Back in the day, they called them farmers and merchants. They owned farms and businesses,
Yeah.
and it's a great legacy. But on my mother's side of the family, they were strictly, W-2 employee type, hey, I'm going to do my 40 years. I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse, I'm whatever, and I'm going to retire and the government's going to take care of it. They were convinced. They got the Social Security, they got a pension. And boy, I can tell you, I've one of my grandfather on my mother's side, at the end, it's kind of sad. He literally had $212 to his name,
Wow.
that was it. But he bought that vision. The government's going to take care of me. And if everybody just look at, I'm not worried about Social Security. I'll probably take it when my time comes. But when I look at it, it is not even near anywhere close to what's needed to survive. I mean, my gosh, poverty level. So it's a horrible plan. But what I guess challenges, inefficiencies do you see in your clients? Because I know in my background, it's all over the place. People sometimes just make bad decisions. Other times they just have no money conscious at all. But what are some of the things that you see that have to be overcome in people?
Yeah, and a lot of this is where, a lot of it's actually mindset, and some of it is not difficult, right? It's just hard to stay disciplined and consistent with it.
Mhm.
Even the simple, and certainly in the real estate world, cash flow, right? We've got to operate our financial and our business, personalize our business in a way that creates positive cash flow, right?
Mhm.
More income coming in than going out, right? It's a simple concept, but we are so externally sort of pressured to do things, right? Get the
Yeah.
a big house and pay for education and all these things in life that most people unfortunately go on the other side, right? More is going out.
Mhm.
And what happens? We become a slave to the financial industry, right? Because we have to pay so much interest just to maintain our lives. And that's
Right.
a massive expense that we face in life, right? All through life, right? Interest being one. Two is taxes, right? Taxes is supposed to be a temporary sort of tax system that now
Yeah.
has buried into every aspect of our lives. It's crazy, right? There's no CPA I've ever come across that knows the entire tax code, right? That's
Yeah.
the machine that's been created. And so understanding where big chunks of our money is basically flying away from us, how can we
Mhm.
extract it and bring it back in house to have more capital to preserve, obviously preserve for our use, but then deploy to things that we can invest in that we know and can control, like real estate, like your business. We are just taught give it to a manager and let them manage it. They know better. They're so complicated, right? The normal
Yeah.
person can't do it. I came from that
Yeah.
world. It's not. It is absolutely false, but it's what they want us to believe. That we just let them
Right.
manage it, right? So those are the types of concepts that say if you just step back from it for a moment, the banking system, right? And today it's a little different environment because you can actually get some returns from a bank these days. But
Yeah.
when we loan our money to them by a deposit and earn what is 0.1%, what do they
Mhm.
do with it? They don't just sit on it. They deploy it
Right.
for their own purposes and make way more money on it. And so what if you could control that, right? And
Right.
keep the interest in your world that you can control. You kind of think, well, there's no alternatives. Well, there are. You just have to think a little broader about things. And so it
Yeah.
starts at those fundamental understandings of finance and really what is the system being built to control us, right? Are
Yeah.
they bad people? No, but maybe some are, but most of the
Yeah.
people are not. They just have a
Yeah.
very strong system in place that we have to learn from.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to GaryRealEstateWithGaryWilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Yeah. What's interesting is I spent 18 years in the banking industry, and I wasn't in retail. I was in operations, IT. We did mergers and acquisitions, and eventually did manage, 10 different business applications, including the CD/IRA department. So we were involved with people's life savings. And that's what you just described there was perfect. I realized when I was there, I was like, wow, this is not good. Holy crap. People don't realize let's say you deposit $100,000, the bank's going to lend that out, but the bank's not lending it out just once.
Right.
They literally, because of in the 70s when somebody figured out we could package all these loans up, sell them to Wall Street, and then Wall Street would sell shares of that bundle to you and I as investors. Well, all the money goes back to the bank, right? They're selling it, so the money goes back to it. The bank reloans it, so they can do that up to 10 times. Each time you loan it, you loan less and less and less because there's reserve requirements. But the problem is when things go sideways, and when we saw it in the last recession, like with Countrywide Bank, the big famous example that required Bank of America to take them over. See, when one of those loans goes into default, the reserves are only enough to cover one loan. So if one loan goes into default, remember, there's still 9 other loans in line. And if another one goes into default, and this is what happened, literally they had on average, 30% of their loans were underwater. Like if they loan $100,000 10 times, that means 3 of them were in default, where the reserves are only there to cover one. It was disastrous. And what happens is all of that eventually trickles down to the consumer, sometimes in the way of taxes, sometimes in a way of increased fees that the bank charges you, fees on credit cards and debit cards, and if your balance falls below a certain level, they charge you a fee. If you bounce a check, they charge you a fee. Um, and at the end of the day, the other way they the cost that get passed on us is they pay us less on our money. So they're making, I mean, 100 times more than what they're paying us in interest. And that's not an exaggeration. That's a fact.
Yes.
So it's just insane. And there's other things. So I could go on and on about, people going into debt to buy homes, going into debt to buy cars. All that does, guys, is it takes control from you, it puts it to hands into other people. And I'm not like a big conspiracy theorist person. I'm a pragmatic person. I understand the facts, understand the financial industry, and when they do that, they've got you. I mean, I could all come up with all kinds of euphemisms, but they got you right where they want you. You're now beholden to them. You owe them, right? And if you don't pay, you'll find out who really does own your car and own your house. And if you don't pay taxes, you'll find out who owns your car and owns your house. You know, so in any case, I don't know if I'm going too far with this, Tom, but any other examples you can think of how big corporations and government really are, they're chipping away at your financial freedom. And I know I could get in trouble for this. I don't really mean to. I just want people to understand what it means to them, what the impacts really are, so that they can make good decisions with their money, how they deploy it, how they invest it, how they use it, to put more in control in the citizens and less in the big corporations and in big government. And I believe we need national defense, we need a road system, we need interstate commerce, all those things we need. Absolutely, government is necessary to a degree. I just think it's gone too far. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it's become a system that you almost feel like helpless, right? And when I talk to a lot
Mhm.
of folks, it's like this is the way the system works. And I say, okay, first you got to understand it and then be able to expand your thinking. Okay, how else could I control my capital? Right?
Mhm.
Even alternative to banks. And we put our money into a 401k plan with only options for mutual funds or stocks and bonds, right? It's the only thing. Well, that's not by accident, right? And then you got to say, well, how could I actually do that? If I want to invest in real estate in a retirement account, can I do that? Yes, you can, right? If
Mhm.
you understand that that's even a reality. right? Through
Right.
self-directing, but they don't want to tell you those things because it allows the money to get away from them, right? That's what they
Hmm.
ideally want. There's four rules that, if you step back and think about it. And I heard this for the first time, it like shook me. And I really said
Hmm.
there's four rules that financial institutions play by. And
Hmm.
one is they want our money, right? They want it. And they want it
Hmm.
consistently, right? They just feed it into the system, right? And what
Hmm.
do they want to do? They want to hold it for as long as possible, right? Because they can use it,
Yep.
deploy for other purposes. And they wouldn't want to give it back to you. They want to trickle it back to you because they want to hold it for as long as possible. So you understand that game of it, then you say, okay, how can I have constant freedom and use of my dollars and put them into things that I know and can control? It allows you at least to open up your mind because they are in control of that. And it's put people in a sort of, I call it like a zombie mode. Just keep on going, right? And I don't pay attention. I don't care at the fees, the lack of liquidity, all those sorts of things. I see people with seven-figure incomes, they can't come up with
Yep.
$10,000 because
Right.
everything's wrapped into paying mortgages and loans and taxes
Yep.
and funneling money into accounts they can't touch for 20 years. When you
Yeah.
really reflect on that, is that security, right?
No,
It's just,
yeah, I hate to say it, but it's like indentured servitude. It's what you're indentured, you're beholden to them. They've got you. Like imprisonment,
yeah, I
Um,
never thinks about like in the fees. Like I talk about like you invest in the government is basically investing with you in a qualified plan, deferred,
yeah,
right? There is advantages of doing some of it, but putting
yeah.
all of our nest egg into those things, right? We're basically paying, if you're in a fee laden one, you're paying your fees and the government fees, right?
Hmm.
They're allowing us to pay for that for decades. And then what do they do at the end? They tell you how much the piece they get to keep, right? They
Yeah,
dictate that by tax laws, right? So those are the types of things when you reflect on that and say, do you want the vast majority of your wealth like that? I know
yeah,
I don't. And so that's the type of stuff that we teach because it's just once you start picking it apart, you recognize most people are in a trapped environment. And it's harder to expand, right? To do things like real estate investing or
yeah.
starting a business, right? You got to go back to the same well.
Well, let's talk about that. So we identified, obviously one of the core challenges in modern society. Because I want you to understand, we do need government. We do need we actually do need banking in some form, right? Because of all the interstate commerce and international commerce and things like that. You need a banking system, at least right now, unless somebody comes up with a better idea. But having said all that, Tom, what are some of the opportunities? Let's talk about playing offense now. What are some of the better or biggest opportunities that are available to your clients now, um, to stay more in control and build more wealth?
Yeah. So this is what I would call it's not. So we'll go into two parts of it. One is not even an investment, right? And this is you may have for folks in here now it's starting to become more mainstream to some degree, like infinite banking, sort of bank on your. You hear all these terms. Like I'm a practitioner, and I see some of the way it's marketed, and it's a little scary. But
Yeah.
at its core, to your point, it's a way to finance everything in your life and play that sort of internal banking role, right? Banking itself
Hmm.
is storage of money. It is financing things, getting loans and perpetuating that. Well, we only use banks today, right? For the most part. That's what most people are associated with. Well, through, uniquely designed sort of high cash value life insurance, you can use that as sort of a funding source and a storage
Okay.
bin, right? That you can sort of manage yourself. It's a system. The tool gets so corrupted. It's more
Mhm.
about a system and sort of lifestyle to manage and control more of your capital, right? It's really capital and capital management, right? It's not an
Yeah.
investment, but it protects, it does so a whole host of things, and you control the lending function of it because it's guaranteed, just like a home equity line of credit. You can borrow against it, right? It's really nothing too crazy, but it allows you to control your capital and use it when you want to on your terms, right? It's in
Hmm.
that, and then obviously protect family. But then the beauty of it, which I've kind of come to realize even for myself, I'm doing my own real estate investing in private equity, is like borrowing their money to invest, right, elsewhere. So if you
Mhm.
borrow, say 5% and put into something 10%, right, like a loan or some private loan to a
Mhm.
real estate investor. And that's what I started. I said I took $5 and turned it to $10. That's not a
Mhm.
5% return. That's 100% return, right? This is what the banks understand and how they leverage our money, right? And sort of uh, continue to multiply. And you do it 10 times, imagine the returns they get. That's why banks have the fanciest offices, right? There's a
Yeah.
reason for that, right? They're controlling
Yeah.
tons of capital. So what if we could do that for ourselves, invest in things that we know, like and understand, like real estate or private lending, or there's a host of different opportunities once you start learning it that go outside the public markets, but they don't really want you to know those things because they
Yeah.
want to keep you in that bubble of just public equities. Well, there's benefits to doing those other things because some of them you get to know the operators. How many people would you know, even know the name of the mutual fund manager that they put their 10 different mutual funds in?
Yeah.
Nobody even knows what they're doing with them. I don't even know what they're invested in. And I said, that to me has always been a fundamentally weird thing to just
Yeah.
pray and hope that that works out, right? Now you get
Yeah.
to control maybe your own piece of real estate and control who comes in, how it's managed, insurance around, like all those tax benefits. Those are the opportunities I think I would rather have more of my money in. And then you want to speculate, right? I get it, like
Mhm.
Bitcoin or whatever it is that you want to get into, but that's a smaller piece. Most people have most of their pieces in those things, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then they hope it's going to be there someday, right? That's not
Yeah.
to me, a
Yeah.
great strategy.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm always learning. I'm a constant, you know, learner. I mean, every day I'm reading, studying something, or learning from someone else. That's why I love doing the podcast. It's a great service to the community, but I learn a lot myself. And, so I am. I obviously everybody knows me as being a real estate person, but I've actually done well in the stock market. And I'm right now I have some cryptocurrency, but it's very you have to be careful out there, guys. We'll have other podcasts just on cryptocurrency, but there's some of the fundamentals that you use, like in the stock market, you still do the same thing with cryptocurrency. There's projects that you want to stay away from. Anytime somebody says something like, "Well, just give me your crypto, and then we're going to give you a certain return every week or every month," um, and you give up control of that asset, run the other way as fast as you can. I'm telling you, not enough time on this podcast to give all the reasons why. I'm just telling you, that's a big, huge red flag. You should control your assets. So back to what you were saying a moment ago. You mentioned real estate, life insurance, and I know when I first started building wealth, Tom, it was early on. It was in the '80s, and some of the wealthiest people I met through the '80s and '90s and the 2000s had big life insurance policies, but they weren't just having them for the death benefit. They were leveraging that. They were borrowing against their cash value and became their own banker. So can you, and I understand the term is infinite banking. Would you mind touching on that a little bit? Let people know that this is one of the keys to wealth building is doing something like that. I see it all the time.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of those hidden sort of gems, and I just stumbled across it over the years. And as you really
Mhm.
look into it, and back to kind of one of our biggest need in life is financing, right? So that the concept, which is very simple, right? You borrow from somebody, a institution, and you finance, you pay interest. Well, the other option is to pay cash. I thought I was super smart. I pay cash, right, for
Mhm.
everything, like a Dave Ramsey sort of approach. Well, every time you pay cash, you actually lose the right of that money earning forever, depending on where it goes. So either option is financing. And so why would you not want to control that piece of it, right? To hopefully
Right.
recapture some of that interest. And that's what infinite banking really helps to fill a gap in because so we're not reliant on a banking system, we can create our own. And so that's where back in the 80s, when the tax laws changed, to your point, Gary, real estate, even though it was very tax advantaged, they trimmed down some of the benefits, right? So you couldn't apply against your active income as much unless you become a professional, right? Real estate professional. Tons of people were putting in here into life insurance to the point where it ceased being life insurance. is just a tax shelter, right? So
Hmm.
the laws were changed in such a way that there is a cap where we can put it in as much we can put in to maintain it as life insurance, but we get all the tax advantages to it.
Hmm.
So that's why a lot of folks who understand it are using this as their pool because of a whole bunch of things. One, inside the life insurance, it acts almost like a house in the sense that you're building up equity in your policy. The death benefit is the
Hmm.
big number. You're building up equity in your policy, and over time that gets more efficient. There's a guaranteed loan provision within these policies designed right, so you can borrow against it and use it as collateral for whatever purpose you want, whenever you want. And the beauty of it for people who like control, you control the terms of it, right? There's an interest rate because you're borrowing, but your asset is not stopping its momentum. It continues to grow, right? And you
Right.
pay your loan back when you are ready, right? And I would certainly encourage it. Being an honest banker, you would do that, but you're going to do it anyway if you borrow from somebody, right?
Yeah.
You're just putting it back into your system, and all along the way, it's protecting you and your family. And this is what a lot of very wealthy families use it for generational wealth building, but also to
Hmm.
support their business adventure endeavors, right? So,
Yeah.
for instance, if I want to start a business, and it says I can borrow from my family bank. I don't have to go ask a bank for it. They're not going to probably
Yeah.
give it to me anyway if it's too speculative. Well, your family bank becomes a source, right? That you can use this to store wealth, and it's free from creditor. There's a whole host of benefits to it outside of the
Hmm.
typical banking system, and it's tax advantaged. So those are complementary pieces to it. You know, you're going to probably heard, and you've probably heard it in your lifetime, life insurance is the worst investment out there, right? You hear that from
Yeah.
a Dave Ramsey.
Hmm.
And I would actually agree with him because it's not an investment. It is a
Yep.
cash management system and tool that gives the owner the control over it, right?
Hmm.
And comes with a whole host of other benefits we just talked about. So it's just a different lens of how you think about it. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And if you wouldn't mind, I know we're kind of getting close on the half hour mark here, but there's so much more to talk about. Um, let's talk about your business model, Perennial Pride. So when you work with people, is the your model that you follow and the process you follow, is it does it involve multiple types of assets and opportunities? What does that look like if someone was to reach out to you? And by the way, if you don't mind, I'm going to share with everybody, guys, you want to look up visit perennialpride.com. Okay, that's Tom's website, perennialpride.com. And he actually has a book, okay, that's Wealth Beyond the Numbers that you can get from the website. So if someone goes to the website, Tom, what does that process look like to engage with you and what can they expect,
Yeah, definitely. And obviously having initial discovery to see kind of what's going on, what's really
Hmm.
a priority for you, and at least get a sense of it. And then what, just like anything else, is going through a discovery phase, right? To learn about
Hmm.
you, what's happening, what are things that you want to address. And we have a process that helps people just ask questions around what's going on, right? And
Hmm.
where they're potentially interested in their goals. So that comes with time, and we got to go through that so we can help you prioritize what you want to address. There's so potentially
Hmm.
so many different things, but I am always hesitant to share too many. Like if I use a doctor analogy, prescriptions until you understand what the problem is, right, and the
Yeah.
things that you're trying to achieve. We use as a client for with different advisors, it was just pitching products everywhere, and it was just
Yeah.
trying to fit that in. There are so many different ways to attack problems, and it's just understanding what it is and how my clients see things. And so thankfully I have a process that helps to diagnose that, right? And together my clients tell me what they want to address, right?
Yeah.
What specifically in areas. And thankfully I have a core team that helps sort of as a planning team to really help people come with solutions. But the benefit I recognize too, and you take it, because my family's in the medical field and I was in research for a while. It's like having the team of doctors to help solve and treat a patient. Well, that doesn't really happen in a lot of ways today. Very
Yeah.
siloed. That's exactly how the financial industry is set up, right? You have insurance people, investment people, you have tax, you have legal. So I actually have a benefit because I knew I needed a team to help fill in those gaps around taxation, around estate planning. And so I have a virtual family office that I can bring to the table for business owners or high net worth people that need more comprehensive support. And we work as a team because what I do know is even though I'm going to learn for the rest of my life as long as I'm here, there's no way I can know it all. But I need
Yeah.
a team to help supplement and care for my clients. And that's where I can bring to the table because I just wanted that for as a client, right? I'm the
Yeah.
one fishing and finding all these people, right? Myself, I said, these people need to be available and I trust them and they can come and help my clients when it's needed, right? You're selling a business or you have a big tax problem, whatever the situation. Well,
Yeah.
I need to bring the right people in, right? To help solve
Yeah.
the problem, right? So that's the model that we've adopted.
Yeah.
And so it's been really helpful because it's I think in the end it's around the right type of people and it takes a team sometimes, right? You know, it is
Yeah.
around real estate investing. You can't do that in
Oh, yeah.
isolation and be successful. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is, I know your in your background, your family history, your dad was a doctor and you're or a pharmacist. And what's interesting is that that approach that you take to solving problems with people's health, you apply that to people's wealth. I mean, actually, that's a great tagline, going from health to wealth. But it's true. I mean, that philosophy, that's brilliant. I mean, instead of just being like a one size fits all, because I've been to different financial advisors and they all have something that they're really trying to do, but very few are diversified. Like I've only found two financial advisors in my life that actually invested in real estate too, and they were both secret. Like, look, you can't tell anybody I'm investing in real estate because they would not work with me. And I told him, I said, I actually disagree with that. I think there's a lot of people like me that understand the value of being in different asset classes, and real estate is just one of them. That just happens to be the thing that I develop expertise in. Please forgive me. I would never call myself an expert at anything, but I've learned to really value, being in these other asset classes. So it takes time. Building wealth is not there's no such thing as a get rich quick thing, other than the lottery. But that's not a plan. That's gambling. And look how few people win the lottery. And look what happens when they win the lottery. They end up losing it. The vast majority of people in the lottery are broke within a matter of years. It's a sad, true statistic. But people that methodically and through disciplined approach build wealth over a lifetime, it's solid, it's grounded, it's based in real world principles that are universal, that apply to any asset class. You know, doesn't matter if you're in crypto. I mean, I know a lot of people in crypto right now that are absolutely crushing it. You
Mhm.
know, but but a lot of them came from some other asset class, like real estate, for example. In any case, I know we could go on and on. We're. I apologize for everybody listening. I know we're kind of we're past the half hour mark, but I want to ask you guys, if you're listening, please leave a review for this. Your review is that's our currency. That's what makes the podcast world go around. It's a great community service. We usually enjoy doing it because we learn a lot. But leave a good review for this because you're meeting someone like Tom, and where it's not just another real estate person. He's open. He has a real discipline, methodical approach to helping you figure out where you are and how you got there financially, and helping you get to where you want to go financially. Go to the website perennialpride.com. um, Set up an appointment to talk to Tom. You can do it right there, and more importantly, get the book, Wealth Beyond the Numbers. I can't wait to read it myself. And Tom, thank you for doing this again, man. I really appreciate your time and your energy and your and sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Gary. I really always this is why I love being around people that are so educated in their own areas. It helps me think better, and I really hope people got some benefit out of it. And thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
You got it. Well, take care of yourself. The listeners, take care of yourself too. God bless you and your families, and we will see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.